everybody and welcome back to A Royal Reader. My name is Bambi and today I'm going to be doing my February wrap-up. Now, this is quite late. We're already into the second week of March, but I still figured that I would do this video because I would like to talk about the books that I read. So let's just jump into it. I did read a few of these in ebook, so I don't physically have the books with me. So the first book that I read on ebook was The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. This is the third and final book in the Folk of Air trilogy. Now, if you have not heard of the Folk of the Air trilogy, where have you been? But basically, it is another fairy realm book. We follow Jude and her twin sister Taryn as they are kidnapped after their parents are brutally murdered by a red cap fairy called Maddock. He then takes them back to Elfheim, where they live the rest of their lives as mortals in fairyland. I can't really go too much into the series itself as it is quite spoilery, but basically things happen and it forces Jude to do a few questionable things. So I absolutely loved the first book in this series. The second book I loved even more. This one I gave 2 stars out of 5. So unfortunately for me, this one just seemed like the pacing was set at like 100 compared to the other books. I felt like it was a very big rush and that a lot of the plot points weren't exactly like fleshed out as much, and half of the characters felt rather 2D and they were making decisions that I didn't think the characters would make. And the overall massive big plot twist I did not really understand. So that is why I gave this a 2 out of 5. Unfortunately, I was really disappointed that the ending of the trilogy was only a 2 out of 5 stars, but what can you do? I am still looking forward to more of Holly Black's books. I just don't know how her finales are gonna go. Alright, so the next book that I read was a very anticipated release for me in 2020. So that was Call Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater. I did read it on the Kindle, but I did end up going out and purchasing this lovely paperback. So basically, if you have not read Maggie Stiefvater's The Raven Boys, you will get a little bit confused about this because this does follow 2 of the main characters from that series and basically their life after the events that happen in the Raven Cycle, and it follows things that I can't really talk about because it's spoilery for the series. So just go and read the Raven Cycle and then go and read this because it was incredible. It is queer, it is magical, it is mystical, it's atmospheric, and it is just amazing, okay? Maggie Stiefvater's writing is the best when it comes to writing about this style of fantasy, I guess. So I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I did find that some aspects of it were like lacking in a way, and how I wasn't like completely satisfied, but I did really enjoy this. The only thing that bumped it down to a 4 out of 5 was the fact that my favorite character was not in this as much as I thought he was going to be. But regardless of that, I still really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait for the second book in the trilogy. The third book that I read was one that I picked up from my local library. It was just a quick read, and that was Heart of the Moors, an original Maleficent novel. This was, I think, a companion novel to the second Maleficent movie that came out, which I have not seen, but thus I still really enjoyed. This is also written by Holly Black, so I really enjoyed her writing. This was a really quick read. I read it when I was slightly ill, and just found that I really enjoyed it. It was a cute, fun, don't eat it. It was just a cute, fun read, and I have a feeling that I'm going to know a lot about the movie when I eventually watch it. Please don't eat the tripod. So I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars because I did really enjoy it, and I absolutely love Maleficent, and I really enjoyed Aurora being a strong heroine instead of just being, from the original Disney anyway, being just the princess that lies down. Are you bringing my coffee? Yay! Careful, it's hot. You can make them yourself now, but I messed up because you're not supposed to put the vanilla in. I always put the vanilla in first.
Yeah, but then you have this thing when you mess on the top because the froth is always at the top and it messes with pouring out thing.
Oh, don't worry about it. Thank you very much. Yes, amazing. So the 4th book that I read for the month of February was Wicked Fox or Gumiho by Kat Cho. So I read this on Kindle because I just could not wait to go and find it at my bookstore. And I was so excited to actually see this because I am obsessed with K-dramas, I am obsessed with K-pop, and so seeing this I was like, oh my god, this is right up my alley. I want to read this immediately. I love the folklore of, well, mainly just Asian folklore and mythology, and I really enjoyed seeing that K-pop, or just like the Korean genre of like fantasy and stuff, is coming out in YA. So I picked this up immediately, and basically in The Wicked Fox we follow our main character Miyoung, who is a 9-tailed fox. In order for Miyoung to continue living, she needs to suck the souls out of men. Now, unfortunately, during one of her killings, our second main character Ji-hoon accidentally stumbles upon her in the middle of this act, and they get into a bit of a tumble. During this tumble, Miyoung's fox bead, or fox gyusul, which is essentially like her soul, ends up coming out, and Ji-hoon touches it. This then creates a bit of a situation for the two of them, as Miyoung doesn't know how to put the bead back, and it also ends up linking the two of them together. So this story then follows their situation and how they become friends, or unlikely friends anyway, and the story of how Miyoung can try and get her gyusul bead back. This story, unfortunately, did not live up to the expectations that I had for it. I guess I kind of went into it thinking that it was going to be like amazing and incredible, and I was let down just a little bit. I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. There was a lot of dragging, and it continued to drag until about the halfway point, which is where we had our very first plot twist, and then it continued to pick up a little bit, and then things got really crazy, and then it ended up sort of taking another nosedive afterwards. I felt that a lot of the story was evolved around Miyoung and Ji-hoon's relationship, which I wouldn't have minded if we also got a little bit more of like the foxtail history and just a little bit more of the magic system that was involved. So unfortunately that was upsetting. I don't really know if I am going to be continuing this series or not. I think I might pick it up just to see if it gets any better, as I do know that this is the author's very first book, so it is a debut, so obviously debuts aren't always going to be the best and biggest thing that can be. There's always going to be things that they can fix, so I'm hoping that once Kat Cho releases the second book, it will be better than the first. So the 5th and final book that I read for the month of February was in fact Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. This has been on my TBR for literal years. So as you guys would have known, as I said in my booktube newbie tag, I originally had a booktube channel back in 2016, and I have had this book since then and have not read it until this past February. So if you do not know what this is about, this story follows our main character Etta, and she is a violinist prodigy, I want to say. She ends up getting trapped and caught up in this weird, mysterious group of time-traveling families, and she ends up having to try and save her mother from certain death. and she is basically sent on this wild goose chase throughout different time periods in different countries to try and find this specific invention, device, or something that can help these time travelers travel through time. This was an interesting read. The time traveling aspects of it is, time travel already is confusing, so it just made it even more confusing with like the rules that they have to follow. You know, you can't go and see yourself, you can't go and talk to yourself. If you go back in time to a place that you've already been, my washing machine is going off. That aspect of it was slightly confusing to try and get my head around. I've never really been good with time travel, but I did enjoy the fact that when Etta was stuck in a time period that she wasn't used to, like she gets transported to like the 18th century or the 17th century, and we get to see how she has to change herself in order to fit into the society. So I really did enjoy that aspect of it, and I also really enjoyed the aspect of where Etta refuses to allow the blatant racism that there is against our second main character called Nicholas. He is a person of color, and there is quite a bit of blatant racism throughout this book, which is understandable for the time periods that they are traveling through, and Etta just refuses to allow anybody to get away with treating him that way, as much as Nicholas tries to stop her, because obviously it's just what the time period like has. So I did really enjoy that aspect. Unfortunately, the love in this felt very, very insta-lovey. Like one moment they've only just met each other and they're talking, and the next they're saying that they love each other and it's only been like a week, probably 2 to 3 weeks anyway. That was a bit annoying, but overall I did enjoy it. It did drag on a little bit, and it did felt like there was some traveling sequences where we could have just like cut them out, but overall it was an enjoyable read, and I do think I will pick up the second book just to see where exactly it goes, because certain things happen at the end and I'm like, oh, that's rather interesting. So overall I gave this a 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it. Bits of it made me not want to put it up to the 4 stars, so yes. This was also my very first Alexandra Bracken book. I did not read the Darkest Minds series simply because I don't like dystopian. I tried to read Hunger Games, didn't like it, hated Divergent, so I didn't pick up the Darkest Minds. So this is my very first Alexandra Bracken novel, and I really enjoyed her writing, so that was also a very big plus. So that was all of the books that I read in the month of February. I am actually really surprised that I read 5 books. It has been a while since I have actually read. I only started reading back in July, and it took me like 3 months to actually read one novel that was over like 300 pages. So I am actually really pleased with myself. That does mean that I've gone a little bit ambitious with my March TBR, but you guys will see that in another video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Let me know how many books you read in February down below in the comments. I would love to see the books that you read. Did you have a 5-star read? Did you have a 1-star read? Please let me know. I'd love to chat to you guys. Please check me out on Twitter and Instagram. I'll leave the links down below. So come follow me and we can be the greatest of bookish friends. And I will talk to you guys later on.